Welcome to the Ash Ketchum Egglocke. In an Egglocke, your first encounter on each route is replaced with an egg, and if a team member faints, it's gone forever. But instead of using your guys' egg suggestions, I've taken every Pokemon that Ash has caught throughout his journey and shrunk them back into eggs. So besides our starter Pikachu, who has replaced Trico here so May could retain her signature Torchic, I'm gonna allow one egg before each gym. Our first egg could be anyone from the mischievous Squirtle squad, to the rare shiny Noctowl, or even the most recent powerhouses he added from his adventures in Galar. So with our starter Pikachu, I decided to name him Quincy since nothing gets past his Thunderbolts. If you can guess the nickname theme from that alone, then wow, you deserve a free shiny for that. As we get geared up to challenge Roxanne, we can grab our first egg out of the PC. So a bit of running around and our egg hatches into a Snorunt. Okay, definitely not a common Pokemon, but I do like Snorunt a lot. Ash evolves him into Glalie, which is a Pokemon that I have never used before. But I am very grateful for the egg RNG, since Azalea's ice typing gives us a great matchup against most of Roxanne's team. I'm pretty sure Geodude will be a one-shot, but I decided to set up a little first. We go for a double team to boost our evasion, as she only misses a Rock Tomb. On the next turn, we continue to set up as Geodude goes for a Harden, but those defense boosts mean nothing to a Powder Snow, which as I expected, gets the easy one-shot. Roxanne sends out her second Geodude, but the same happens to her. We actually get the level up with this kill, and along with the extra stats, we also learn Icy Wind, a direct upgrade to Powder Snow. But as Nosepass comes out, I decided it was too risky to stay in and gamble on the evasion, since a Rock Tomb definitely takes us out. I switch into Quincy, who's forced to tank a Rock Tomb down to yellow health, but our held Oranberry can let us live another one. So on the next turn, we stay in and go for a Thunder Wave, paralyzing the ugly rock as Nosepass decides to go for a Harden. With that free turn, we're now safe to stack double teams as Nosepass fails over and over again to hit us. So after reaching +6 evasion, we're good to fire off Thundershocks to whittle away at her HP, slowly taking her out while dodging all of Nosepass's attacks. This is such an anime moment, I feel like Ash saying, "Pikachu, dodge it!" She does manage to connect a Rock Tomb before going down, but even with the speed drop, we can easily outspeed her for the KO, winning us our first gym badge. Before we crack open our second egg though, we can quickly take out the Aqua Grunt to rescue Pico. Our stab Icy Winds are pretty powerful since there aren't many ice resists at this point yet. As a reward for our good deeds, we can choose another egg to open to help us in our next gym fight, and out pops Corphish. This isn't exactly what I'm looking for, and with 3 first stage Pokemon, I'm a little nervous that Brawly might put up a tough fight, especially if things get out of hand with Bulk Up. He leads with Machop, and I start the battle with Quincy. We trade blows as we use Thundershock for a fair bit of damage, and Machop retaliates with a Karate Chop for about the same. Another Thundershock brings him down to the red, but Brawly switches it up and uses a weaker low kick. This doesn't do as much as the Karate Chop, but more importantly, it also activates our Oranberry, putting us back in the green. Brawly always heals here, so I continue using Thundershock. I'm intentionally not using Thunder Wave because this Machop has guts, so I don't want to power up his moves. A few more turns back and forth and Machop goes down as we're sitting in the yellow. This brings out Meditite, but he's only carrying Focus Punch. So by spamming Thundershock, we can break his focus over and over again as we take him out. Last out is Makuhita, and we're definitely dead to any attack. But Makuhita loves going for bulk up, so I decide to stay in and use Thunder Wave. If this doesn't work out, 07's in the chat for my boy Quincy, but Makuhita actually gets paralyzed on the first turn. That's perfect for us because Quincy lives to see another day as we switch into Brickle. We've got a tank of Vital Throw, but a few Vice Grips later, plus a lucky para, and Makuhita finally falls. I'm gonna be honest, without those paras, we probably would have wiped, but luck was on our side as we managed to squeak out a victory, defeating Brawly and winning us our second gym badge. A quick boat ride later, and we've arrived at Slateport, where we first crack open our next egg. And loot box moment, we get Chikorita. He'll give us a nice resistance to Wattson, but we don't exactly have a hard counter yet. But that's a challenge for later. We first gotta clear out the Aqua Grunts from the museum. Fun fact, if you ignore the guy who gives you the Thief TM, he actually stays behind after you've beaten the grunts. I did not know that, the more you know. After we're done at Slateport, there is a rival battle coming up, but Oben perfectly evolves into Bailey for the extra stats. I won't be evolving into Meganium or Crawdaunt for that matter, since Ash sucks and refuses to evolve his team. May, on the other hand, does evolve her Pokemon, but our team can handle them. Quincy zaps Wingull out of the sky, shocks Lombre out of the, swamp, and Brickle comes out and washes over Combuskin with the Bubble Beam. With the rival cleared, that grants us access to Mauville, where we can get a significant bump in our team's power. Thunderbolt and Ice Beam are both at the game corner, so Quincy and Azili get a nice little upgrade to their stab. We also one-shot Wally. Poor guy. I always like to highlight this battle because, I don't know. I like to bully Wally a little. Don't bully in real life though. Try and be a good person.
Everyone, we have an announcement to make. Stop bullying!
Wally's acceptable though. Even Scott's joining in.
I was watching that match.
Well, regardless, Wattson's gonna put up another tough fight. He leads with Voltorb as we start the battle with Azili. Voltorb outspeeds and hits us with a Spark, which even gets a lucky para, but we came prepared with a held Cherry Berry. We fire back with an Ice Beam, and now that Voltorb's in the yellow, it's time for Voltorb to do what he was meant to do. We actually tank it on 9 HP, so when Electrike comes out, we've got a switch. Quincy can tank the Shockwave as we fire back with our newly learned Thunderbolt for the 2-shot. Wattson sends out Magneton next, but since we're not exactly the best team to take on Magneton and Manectric, I've got to let Quincy stay in and attack a little more. We continue using Thunderbolt, which is looking like a 4 or 5 shot, but the best part is, Magneton actually gets paralyzed by our attack and immediately gets fully para'd. That makes our job much easier as Quincy lands a critical hit Thunderbolt, and the Triclops gets fully paralyzed again. This must be what the power of friendship feels like for anime protagonists, because this is really saving our butts right now. Wattson heals with a super potion, twice actually, but a few more Thunderbolts and we can take Magneton out with the help of a few full paras. Last out is Wattson's ace Manectric, but we've got one last job before Quincy can bow out. She's got to stay in and tank a Shockwave, which we can barely do on 6 HP as we fire back with a Thunder Wave. It's so important that we're faster as we switch into Oben, whom I've been saving in the back until this very point. We're coming out at full health as Manectric gets fully paralyzed, and after a few rock smashes to drop his defense, we get paralyzed a few times, but we can hold strong. Manectric starts setting up with Howl to boost his quick attacks, but we respond back with a Reflect to mitigate that damage. So a lot of back and forth later, and we've got to hold strong and dodge a crit on Manectric's Shockwave, which we can do on 2 HP. We fire back with Razor Leaf, taking him out while we're on our last legs and winning us our 3rd gym badge. Now that we can use Rock Smash out of battle, we make our way through the routes and arrive at Fall Arbor Town. As a reward for beating Wattson, it's time to get another egg, and after running around again, this egg hatches into a Torkoal.
At any rate, that is what we're going to try to do.
So after heading through Meteor Falls, we can take on Maxie at the top of Mount Chimney. Churchill can deal with Mighty Enna with Flamethrower, but his AI actually switches to Camerupt. We switch into Brickle, but Camerupt's weird AI is hard to play around. He decides not to go for Focus Energy, instead using Magnitude 8, which we can just barely tank. But since the ugly cow is so slow, we can outspeed and one-shot him with the quad-effective Bubble Beam. Then Oben can clean up Mighty Enna, and Quincy can take care of Zubat, winning us the battle and slowing down Team Magma a little. With that good deed taken care of, we can make our way back to Lava Ridge Town for our next gym challenge. But much like Maxie's Camerupt, Brickle can do some heavy lifting here and take care of the fire threats. Flannery leads with Numel, and we start the battle with Brickle. Bubble Beam ends up being a one-shot for both Numel and her follow-up Slugma, but before we can take out Camerupt, she actually outspeeds and lands in a Attract. We get immobilized, but after tanking a tackle, we can fire back with the Bubble Beam for the one-shot. Last out is Flannery's Torkoal, and a Bubble Beam brings her down to below half. But Torkoal uses Attract, and unfortunately our crab is just too love-struck and winds up falling for it again. We get immobilized on the next turn, which lets Torkoal set up a Sunny Day. Oh crap. A sun-boosted overheat is definitely going to take us out, so I've got to switch into Churchill. Instead, we tank a Body Slam, and we can luckily dodge the para. So after stalling out a turn of Sun with Protect, we can use Flannery's own Sun against her as we fire off a sun-boosted Flamethrower for the KO, winning us the battle and our 4th gym badge. Speaking of Protect, by the way, we've got 3 team members who can naturally learn it, so Norman's slacking is much more manageable. Before taking him on though, we do get to open another egg, and our encounter is a Muck. That is a fantastic encounter. Not gonna lie, Muck was definitely a favorite of mine growing up. My best friend and I used to watch the Ash vs. Gary fight in Master Quest over and over again, and I loved the Muck vs. Blastoise matchup. Blastoise's Rapid Spin somehow reflects the Sludge Bomb, but then Muck was so tanky and gooey that after the two collided, it put a stop to his spinning. Then, using his powerful cannons, Blastoise blasts Muck with a Hydro Pump to force him off, and I don't know, this whole scene was so cool. Then Bayleaf comes out and uses its Vine Whip to do a Super Jump, which we can't do because we don't learn it, but it's still so cool. Okay, this isn't an anime review, but yeah, this battle is awesome and really special to me. Anyway, with Corvus on our team, we finally got 6 members and a pretty solid answer into Norman. He leads with Spinda as I start the battle with Churchill. Spinda outspeeds us and hits us with a weak facade, but with our high defense stat, we can easily tank it and fire back with a flamethrower. And with our respectable special attack, we can score a nice and simple one-shot. Norman sends out Vigoroth next, but since we're still pretty healthy, we can stay in and tank a facade before firing back with another flamethrower, which is yet another one-shot. Well, I checked after, and apparently this Torkoal has 31 special attack IVs, and the Modest nature, so yeah, that definitely helps out a ton. Well, Linoon out next, so we tank another slash and fire back with a flamethrower, but he actually tanks it. We've got to tank a facade, but since we're so bulky, it's no problem at all as a final flamethrower takes him out. Finally, Norman sends out his ace Slacking, but remember how we've got Protect? Yeah, by waiting out the first turn with Protect and attacking on the second when he's loafing, Slacking is completely free as we burn him to a crisp with a few flamethrowers. And just like that, Norman's taken care of and we've got our 5th gym badge. That lets us use Surf now, so we can make our way over to the other half of Hoenn and take on the story at the Weather Institute. The battle here is pretty insignificant as Quincy can outspeed and take everyone out with a Thunderbolt. Shelly's Mightyena needs a little switching to Churchill, but with our level difference, it's not a difficult fight at all. May also challenges us after we leave, but Quincy can deal with her Pelipper with a single Thunderbolt, Brickle can take care of Combuskin since the natural rain on the route can boost our Surf, and Corvus can take out Lombre with a Sludge. So with all the boss fights behind us, we can make our way to Fortree City, but before we can crack open that next egg, I make sure to defeat the Kecleon so we can grab the Devon Scope. Look, you gotta eat your veggies before you can have desserts. So with the invisible obstacles cleared out, we open up our PC to pull out another egg. And after running around a bit, the egg hatches into a Cyndaquil. A little training later, and we've got Quilava to help us take on Winona, but based on our team, they might not be the star player. Winona leads with Swablu, and we start with Azili, but with the quad effective ice coverage, we can outspeed and land an easy one-shot before Swablu can even attack. Winona sends out Skarmory next, so instead of staying in on a potential Steel Wing, I opt to switch into Gwen. Skarmory instead goes for a Sand Attack, and on the next turn, our lowered accuracy causes us to miss a Flame Wheel. This lets Skarmory get off another Sand Attack, but on the next turn, our Flame Wheel actually connects for a critical hit, which is way more than enough for the one-shot. Pelipper is up next, so I switch into Quincy. Pelipper actually misses a Supersonic, so we're completely safe to go for Thunderbolt. Altaria is out last, and expecting an Earthquake, we've got to switch out. Azili's got to tank the attack, but on the next turn, Altaria doesn't see a kill, so she goes for a Dragon Dance, completely throwing the match and letting us take her out with a single Ice Beam. Winona's last Pokemon is Tropius, but another quad effective Ice Beam can get the one-shot, winning us a fairly straightforward badge number 6. With Winona cleared, we can make our way through the most beautiful route in Hoenn before surfing down to Mount Pyre. Archie's here terrorizing a poor old couple, but with Team Aqua in possession of the Red Orb, we've got to run back to the Magma Hideout to stop Maxie. On the way back, we make sure to pick up some useful TMs like Shadow Ball and Giga Drain, but to get ourselves ready for the upcoming fights, I decided to open up another egg for a shot at Dragonite or Gengar. So after running around Lily Cove for a bit, the egg hatches into a shiny Noctowl. That wasn't the answer I was looking for, but I definitely don't mind rolling Ash's only shiny Pokemon. With our newest team member, we get ready to take on Maxie, but it's too late as he's already used a Blue Orb to awaken Groudon. He escapes, and in return, Maxie tries to challenge us, but Churchill can handle Mightyena as a Persian Berry can shake off the swagger. Maxi actually switches here, but a now +2 body slam can easily one-shot his incoming Camerupt. Mightyena comes back out, but after Maxi heals, another body slam can finish him off. And against his final Crobat, we tank an air cutter and land a critical hit flamethrower, taking him out and winning us the battle. But it's not all settled yet, as Team Aqua steals a sub from Slateport, so we've got to storm their hideout in Lily Cove. Matt stands in our way with his laughably weak team, so we take out Mightyena with a flamethrower and Golbat with an ice beam. But the sub still manages to escape, so we've got to track them down to the seafloor cavern. On the way there, we can quickly stop by Moss Deep City to take on the next gym challenge, where Azili also evolves into Glalie. We also pull Oben out of the box to help out, and with everything ready, we head in to take on Tate and Liza. They lead with Claydol and Xatu, and I start the battle with Oben and Azili. Azili can outspeed everyone and fire off a powerful Ice Beam into Xatu, which is just strong enough to get the one-shot. They send out Claydol in his spot, as Oben fires off a Giga Drain into Claydol. It does less than half, which gives Claydol the opportunity to use Earthquake, and since Solrock has Levitate, it only hits our side of the field. On the next turn, Azili once again outspeeds and lands an Ice Beam into Claydol, which gets the one-shot, as Tate and Liza send out Lunatone. A Giga Drain lets us heal a little health back, but Solrock uses this turn to set up a Sunny Day. A Flamethrower now will be so bad into either Oben or Azili, so we've gotta act fast. I have them both target into Solrock, as Azili's Crunch takes them down to below half, and Oben's Giga Drain finishes the rest, but Solrock survives on the smallest of slivers. Lunatone then fires off a Psychic into Azili, but we survive in the yellow. Solrock then fires off a Flamethrower, targeting Oben, and with the sun boosting its power, plus a random critical hit, completely melts our little Sauropod. I feel like that matchup was so unfair. If we had just a little more special attack, just one more IV point, we would have easily taken out Solrock. But sometimes our luck just doesn't pan out like that. Rest well, buddy, we will not forget you. At the very least, this gives us the opportunity to send out Quincy, and using our high speed, we can outspeed the Solrock, out-damaging their Citrus recovery and knocking them out with a Thunderbolt. Azili targets Lunatone with the Crunch, and although we miss out on the kill, Lunatone only sets up a Calm Mind, so we are very safe to stay in and take them out on the next turn. Very grateful that the Citrus puts them out of heal range too. And with the heavy heart, we claim our 7th gym badge as we move on to the Space Center storyline. Team Magma's taken over the building, but by teaming up with Steven, we can easily take them out. Okay, it does get a little sweaty as Camerupt lands an Earthquake and nearly takes out Corvus, but with a little help from Steven's Aggron, who knows freaking Dragon Claw and Thunder, we can take out Maxi with no problem at all. Steven gives us the HM for dive, allowing us to make our way to the seafloor cavern to stop Team Aqua. Don't mind this tentacle, by the way, we need him for dive since no one else learns it. So a bit more surfing and we can make our way to Sutopolis. The gym is locked, so we can't make any progress here yet. Instead, we head into the seafloor cavern to stop Team Aqua. We clear through the puzzles pretty easily, and at the end of the tunnel lies a dormant Kyogre. But before we can do anything, Archie challenges us to a battle, sending out Mightyena as we're leading with Brickle. But this fight is no problem at all, as Corvus can deal with Mightyena, and after getting a swagger boost, with the Persim to shake off the confusion, we can take out Mightyena with a strength, Crobat with another strength, and his final Sharpedo with a sludge, which, thanks to being before the physical special split, is still a physical attack. That's Archie taken care of, but even though we defeat him, he still activates the red orb, causing Kyogre to fly out of the cave and start wreaking havoc on the overworld. The two of them are duking it out at Sutopolis, but after a quick visit to Sky Pillar, we can summon Rayquaza to stop them, putting a quick end to their shenanigans before the world falls apart. Kyogre and Groudon both flew off to who knows where. Excuse me? They flew off? Kyogre I can believe, but last I checked, Groudon doesn't have any wings. Did he die? Well, I guess if I'm in this matchup on a tiny piece of land, I'd probably be a goner too. Well, with the world saved, it's time for us to treat ourselves to another egg, and this one actually hatches into Tauros. I decided to bring him into the final gym fight, but I'm not sure how much he can contribute when Quincy's got the best coverage in the game. Juan leads with Love Disc, and we start the battle with Quincy. We can immediately outspeed and land a Thunderbolt, which, because of Love Disc's awful stats, is an easy one-shot. Next out is Whiscash, who actually walls us pretty well, so we've got to switch out. I go into our new team member Pat, who can first drop Whiscash's attack with an Intimidate. That'll make it easier to tank his incoming Earthquake, and on the next turn, we can use Strength for the 2-shot. Whiscash throws by setting up Amnesia, so another Strength can take care of him while keeping us at a decent HP in case we need to use him for Intimidate support again. Juan sends out Celio next, and expecting an Aurora Beam, I switch into a Zeely to resist it. We go back and forth a bit, but a few crunches are able to finish him off, which baits out his Crawdon. I decide to switch into Corvus, who can tank a Crabhammer on the switch-in. Then, on the next turn, I decide to set up a little with Minimize, but Crawdon hits through the evasion with another Crabhammer. On the next turn, we try again, and this time, he's not able to make it past our evasion. One final Minimize, and now we're ready for some action. Sludge connects for the 2-shot, but Crawdon connects on his next attack. It brings us down to the yellow, but a held Citrus Berry lets us comfortably stay in for another. One final Sludge, and the Lobster finally goes down. Now, it's evasion versus evasion as Juan sends out his Kingdra. He outspeeds and sets up a double team, and we immediately miss our Sludge. Then, Kingdra's able to land a Water Pulse, even through our +6 evasion, but on the bright side, our Sludge is able to connect as well. We immediately get the poison, but this Kingdra's got boosted accuracy or something because he lands an Ice Beam, bringing us down to 30 HP. I switch into Pat, tanking an Ice Beam before outspeeding and using Thrash, scoring the KO and winning us our 8th and final badge. We've got to make our way to Evergrande City, and before heading too far into Victory Road, Wally comes out to challenge us. But we've got the level and type advantage as Hazili takes out Altaria with an Ice Beam, his follow-up Delcatty with another Ice Beam, Churchill comes out to take care of his Magneton with a Flamethrower, as well as his follow-up Roselia with another Flamethrower, and finally, Hazili takes care of his Gardevoir with a Crunch. That leaves only one final challenge before us, and that's the Elite Four. But with the team leveled up to the level cap and everyone equipped with the right items, we can head in with our final team to take on the gauntlet ahead of us. First up is Sydney, and he leads with Mightyena as we start with our Mightyena killer, our good old reliable Captain Churchill. Mightyena outspeeds us and lands a critical hit Crunch, but we can tank it with our high bulk and fire back with a charcoal boosted Flamethrower, which because of our level difference is an easy one-shot. Absol comes out next, who tries to set up a Sword Stance, but another Flamethrower can easily one-shot him as well. Sydney sends out Crawdon next, so I switch into Corvus on the turn he uses Surf. We can tank it and fire back with a Sludge Bomb, which narrowly misses out on the kill. This lets Crawdon set up a Sword Stance, and on the next turn, Sydney heals back up to full, but we continue to stay in and attack. We even land a lucky Poison, but a Brick Break later and Crawdon goes down. Sydney sends out Shiftry next, who manages to confuse us with Swagger. We hit ourselves too many times, so now we've got to switch. With all the double teams he's setting up, that's the perfect time to switch into Sai, who hasn't had as much screen time until now, but I wanted to preserve her until this moment. With the powerful Stab Aerial Ace that ignores evasion, we can ignore all of Shiftry's boosts as we take him out in 2 hits. Cacturn is out last, but a single fly can finish off the Scarecrow, winning us our first Elite Four battle with 3 more to go. Next up is Phoebe, and she leads with Dusclops as I send out Azili. This one was not a tough fight at all. A few crunches can take care of her first Dusclops, but since we got confused, I switch into Pat to finish off the second one. Banette comes out next, but Pat's already on a rampage. He tears through Banette and her follow-up Sableye with a few Earthquakes, and against her final Banette, since our HP is getting a little low, I switch into Churchill to take her out with an Overkill Overheat, winning us an easy second battle. That's 2 down with 2 to go. Third up is Glalie, but much like Juan, we start with Quincy for her powerful Thunderbolts. Her lead Celio goes down to a single hit, but Glalie can definitely tank one. I switch into Churchill to resist her incoming Icy Wind, and on the next turn, we tank a Crunch before taking her out with a Flamethrower. This immediately brings out her Ace Walrein, so we've got to switch into a Zeely on the Surf. A Crunch isn't enough damage, so we've got to switch into Sai, who's our special tank. But our Fly doesn't do enough damage, so after tanking an Ice Beam, we need to switch again. I switch into Corvus, and we've got to do a little back and forth. After Glacia heals with a full restore, we keep going back and forth until we're both brought down to the red. A quick switch into Pat, and we can outspeed for the KO, but her Ice Beam manages to freeze us. That leaves us with one option, so a risky switch into Quincy forces us to tank a Surf on 9 HP, before outspeeding and taking out her ace with a Thunderbolt. That was brutal. But luckily, her follow-up Celio can be dealt with using a magnet-boosted Thunderbolt, and... oh shoot. We at least land a lucky paralysis, but Celio breaks through and misses a blizzard. That was insane. The momentum is back on our side now as Glacia heals with a full restore, but another Thunderbolt brings her back down to the red before a final Shockwave can finish her off. Then finally, against her final Glalie, I switch into Churchill, who misses their first overheat, but one more shot and we can connect, getting the simple one shot and winning us our third Elite Four battle. Finally, we're up against Drake, who's got a pretty glaring weakness to a certain team member. His Shelgon manages to land back-to-back protects, but on the third turn, we can connect with an Ice Beam to one-shot him. Flygon is up next, but we can outspeed and take him out with an Ice Beam too. Drake sends out Salamence next, and yeah, same story. Then Drake sends out Altaria. Come on man, you have a Kingdra. That's a neutral hit. Why are you sending out all your quad weak Pokemon first? Well, regardless, Altaria is obviously a one-shot, and against his Kingdra, Ice Beam ends up being a two-shot, which lets him get off a Dragon Dance. But he never ends up using this attack boost, since we can tank a Surf before taking him out with a final Ice Beam, winning us the battle and defeating the final Elite Four member. The final challenge standing in our way before Steven is the champion Wallace fight, and at first I thought this would be like the Juan fight since we've got many checks into his team, but this was not the case. He leads with Wailord and we start with Quincy. We can immediately outspeed and land a Thunderbolt, but because Wailord is just so bulky, he manages to hang on in the red. But this is all according to plan, as Wailord opts to go for Water Spout, which is based on his current HP. So this attack is probably like 20 base power, which we can easily tank. Wallace definitely heals here, so we're safe to continue firing off Thunderbolts. Wailord goes down and Wallace sends out Gyarados, probably because the AI looks for a Pokemon with a super effective move, which would be Earthquake, but is also weak to our Pokemon, which would eliminate Whiscash. That's AI logic for you, but Quincy's definitely not complaining as another quad effective Thunderbolt can one-shot Gyarados out of the sky. Now Wallace sends out Whiscash, so we can switch into Psy on the incoming Earthquake. Then, a little back and forth later, and we're able to bring Whiscash down to the red on the exact turn he uses Hyper Beam. I was a little scared, but Psy, the absolute GOAT, tanks it, and since Whiscash has to recharge, we can take him out without Wallace being able to heal. Instead, he sends out Tentacruel, so I switch into Corvus on the incoming Ice Beam. We can tank it as we retaliate with Strength, even scoring a critical hit. The Hydro Pumps are a little scary, but we hold strong and break through his Jellyfish, living on just 39 HP. Wallace's next Pokemon is Ludicolo, and since he definitely outspeeds, I switch into a Zealy, but Ludicolo lands a critical hit Surf. With that kind of pressure, we can't stay in for another attack, so I've got to switch into Quincy. But Ludi hits us with a hard Giga Drain, and we just barely manage to survive it at 21 HP. It's not looking good for our little buddy, but with the rest of the team barely hanging in there, I've got to make a tough call. I issue the command for Quincy to use Thunder Wave, permanently cutting Ludicolo's speed in half, as Ludicolo gets fully paralyzed. That is incredible luck, as we've now got a turn of momentum back on our side. I use this opportunity to switch into Pat, who tanks a Surf before firing off a Strength, even landing a critical hit and one-shotting him. That only leaves one Pokemon left, and that's Milotic. I decide to stay in and use another Strength, but our attack isn't enough to bring him down to under half. In return, Milotic uses this opportunity to set up a Toxic, and after the first tick of poison, I'm not confident we can survive both the Surf and the second tick. I shuffle around the team for a while, trying to think of a good game plan, but in the end, I come up short. Everyone would fall to a powerful Surf, and our only team member at full health is at a huge type disadvantage. I've got to make the toughest call here, and I can only see one way to give our team the best shot for the upcoming Steven fight. I call on Quincy, our little partner since the beginning, to step out and take the incoming attack, knowing that this battle will be her last. But as she hits the field, Milotic instead goes for a recover. This buys us a free turn, so before we go down, we can at least put up a tough fight. Quincy outspeeds and lands a Thunder Wave, permanently cutting Milotic's speed, and Milotic immediately gets paralyzed on the first turn. Then, on the next turn, we can outspeed again and fire off a Thunderbolt, but the attack doesn't do more than half. And then Milotic breaks through the paralysis and fires back with the Surf, washing away our remaining HP and leaving us with 5 members left. But this gives us the perfect opportunity, as Pat can come back out to outspeed with a Strength, but since Milotic is paralyzed, he gets a 50% boost to his defense thanks to the Marvel Scale ability and easily tanks the attack. Now he's got a chance to fire back, but the Serpent can't move as he gets fully paralyzed. Our poison ticks away at our health as Milotic Citrus Berry restores some of theirs, and now it's all on the line. Pat outspeeds and fires off a Strength, and by some sheer stroke of luck, we score a critical hit, taking out Milotic and winning us the battle. But that was more like the Elite 5, since the true final battle is against Steven in Meteor Falls. I couldn't bring anyone to replace Quincy because we need Waterfall to find him, so with our team of 5, we challenge him to a final battle, winner takes all. He leads with Skarmory as we start the battle with Churchill. Skarmory outspeeds and chips us with an Aerial Ace, but we can retaliate with a Flamethrower for the simple one-shot. Steven sends out Metagross next, who's definitely going to use Earthquake, but I'm confident that we can tank it with our high defense stat and fire back with an Overheat. And immediately, that's Steven's ace taken care of. He sends out Claydol next, so I switch into Pat for the Intimidate support. Earthquake barely does anything, while Strength is looking like a 2-shot. Claydol goes down, and Steven's next Pokemon is Aggron, but we're just perfectly bringing a quad-effective Earthquake, which, even though that should tear through his defenses, Aggron somehow manages to survive on a sliver of health. It's not bad news though, since Aggron decided to use Solar Beam, locking himself into a 2-turn move and not giving Steven an opportunity to heal. A quick Surf later and Aggron is taken care of. Steven sends out Cradily next, and we first get some chip in with an Earthquake as Cradily fires back with a Giga Drain. This isn't a winning matchup, so I switch into Corvus as Cradily only goes for Ingrain. That could be scary, but I use this opportunity to start setting up with Minimize. My thinking was, the less chances Cradily can land Ancient Powers, the less chances he'll have to get the Omni Boost. So after getting to +6 evasion, we can take him out with a few Sludge Bombs while dodging every one of his attacks. Last out is Armaldo, but with all these boosts, I'm definitely not switching out. So a couple more Sludge Bombs with the Lucky Poison can lower the bug's health slowly, and Steven even wises up and eventually starts going for Aerial Ace. But at this point, it's just too late, as a final Sludge Bomb and a last tick of poison can take him out, winning us our first ever Ash Ketchum Egglocke. I hope you guys like this one. I know it's not my typical manga playthrough, but I've always wanted to try an Ash run, but with my own twist. If you guys enjoyed it, feel free to let me know by dropping a like or leaving a comment. I promise I read every single one. If you guys liked it, I might try one in Black 2 and White 2, or maybe Ultra Sun and Moon for the extra challenge. We get access to a lot more broken Pokemon, so the challenge would be pretty fun. And hey, if you've made it this far, you might want to drop a sub. I'm gonna keep making challenge videos just like these, plus it's free and you can always change your mind later. Appreciate you being here, and until next time, this has been Magnus. I'll catch you all in the next video. Peace.